who is going to talk to us about his research, and he has his title here, which I'll let you go ahead and tell us about. But first of all, I'd like to introduce Alexis. He is a second-year undergraduate student who has taken an interest in the crossroads between linguistics and computer science. His research is the result of a collaborative effort between himself and Professor Gregory Browning-Bear. And you're going to this language?
Yes, I'll be presenting on the topic of research, which is constructing programming languages in Taiwan, utilizing Indigenous Syllabics. And like our manager said, this is the result of research with Gregory Browning-Bear, who is no longer at the University of Alabama and returned to Oklahoma. But basically, a brief introduction is this research was kind of an attempt to see how we can use Indigenous Syllabics, which I'll get into on the next slide, how we can use that to possibly create educational programming languages, kind of just like foster STEM in the schools, in the education system, in the tribal communities, and we look at two different syllabic systems, two different cultures, essentially, in this abstract, so in this presentation. So, what are Indigenous syllabics? Well, syllabics are kind of similar to like our alphabet. So we have orthography. This is kind of a system of writing that cultures use to, express the oral or spoken aspect of language. And so under orthography, we have syllabaries and alphabets. You're obviously familiar with the English alphabet, where the alphabet uses symbols, which we call letters, to display or demonstrate sounds. And these sounds are kind of like the lowest form, like in linguistics. They're just just sounds that we make, and the lowest phonetic unit. And this is in contrast to syllabaries, in which syllabaries will use symbols. They'll use these to kind of represent, instead of sounds, which is the lowest phonetic unit, they'll be representing syllables. And so where you may have consonants and vowels in syllabaries, you have combinations, syllable combinations. So you have a consonant, let's say K or a K sound. Well, in the syllabary you have K, K, Ku, Ko, and so on, right? So that's kind of how the syllabaries work in contrast to alphabets. And another thing is individual syllables will sometimes have meaning in Indigenous syllabics, in contrast to alphabet, where there's no really prescribed meaning to a certain letter. It's just a letter. And the last thing with Indigenous syllabics is that they have heavy uses of affixes. So you see a lot of prefixes, suffixes, and even infixes, which, infixes are really interesting because sometimes they'll seem to kind of take the place of a root word. You have an infix instead of a root, which I find really interesting. So Cherokee, this was the first, and this was the first language, the first syllabary, and this was the main focus of the research. So Cherokee, written Cherokee, was created by Sequoia in 1821, and it was one of the first written syllabaries, first written orthographies at least within the U.S., within the different tribes represented, Native American tribes. But Cherokee is a very interesting language. It has a heavy use of tones, but it's not a tonal language per se, like Chinese. And it does, at least I would say, it does use a normal amount of affixes. So you will see like suffixes and prefixes. I'm not so sure about infixes as we get to later, but you do see a lot of that being used. So in September 1999, Cherokee was officially added to Unicode, and what Unicode is essentially is that the computers that we use need to understand different languages, different written languages, different alphabets, and obviously there are different symbols used. So how does the computer know what symbols to put out, what letter to put out? Well, in Unicode uses a series of, it's a system which from the base level it uses negative and positive charges, and then you get into other stuff like the, let's look in my mind right now, but essentially Unicode is using computer functions essentially to transcribe and translate some of these languages from, like I said, essentially the lowest level. It's going to be just ones and zeros, binary, that's what I was referring to. So, what you're looking at here is the table of, this is the official word list that was developed between Professor Johnbear and I. And he was in contact with the Cherokee government and their Department of Language. And so this was the official, because Cherokee has two dialects, Overhill and Overhill, I believe, is the main one, and then they have a dialect out in the Carolinas, I believe, because the Cherokee Nation sits in Oklahoma, but they have a small group out in the Carolinas. So, with these words here, we have the Roman orthography and then English and the function. So this kind of just describes how we use the words as functions in a programming language. So we kind of took and again, this is a very base level program. It's supposed to be for education. So we kind of took the base functions of what a program means, like a print, a loop, define, file, an if function, and we have to include, so we'll kind of get into, some of these other ones and what their uses are. But essentially, this is what was agreed upon. Consistency within Indigenous syllabics is kind of it's kind of iffy. You'll see that when you study different Indigenous syllabics, some are better than others. Cherokee is a lot more concise and a lot more grounded. They've had a lot just more foundation, I guess. A lot of institutions, as opposed to Inuktitut, which I think is on the next slide. And it's not going to be as concise as, what do these words mean? There are a lot of dialects. So the next one is Inuktitut, Kalujapet, which I'm not sure I'm pronouncing that right. It's relatively new. The orthography or the syllabary is the concept, and the base syllabary is actually older than Cherokee. So I think I'm going to go back. So I have history. So in the 1770s, Monrovian missionaries came to Greenland and they started working on a written system. And then we get, this is supposed to say 1845. James Evans, who's a Wesleyan missionary, he developed the first official written system of Inuktitut, which was adopted by the official church of Greenland. And then we jump all the way into 1999, which similar to Cherokee, Inuktitut was added to Unicode, so anyone with a computer can now write the Inuktitut language. And then in 2011, then created a task group to produce unified orthography of the syllabics. And 8 years later, in 2019, College Pet is officially adopted. And so this is like a unified system because, like I said, at least when it comes to Mixed, which is just one of the many languages and dialects that are found across northern Canada and Greenland. And so this was a bit more difficult to try to find the words and these, you know, these have literal translations, so you can kind of read the literal translation. Again, with like Cherokee, you can see, like you'll notice in Cherokee that most of these are more like literal because they have developed their syllabary more, just with the institution. More institutions, they've had institutions longer than the even though the has been around longer than Cherokee. But the consistency was a bit difficult to try to understand and get past. However, thankfully, the creating the language authority and creating College Pet, which was a unified system, there was more defined terms in their language and their dictionary, which allowed me to create a word list for functions and the functions that will be used in the program. So this is a tutorial of the program and kind of how it works. And I'm just going to explain kind of what you see on the screen. So this tutorial is using Cherokee. So we have one E, which if you noticed earlier means print, and we wrote OCO. And it prints OCO, which means hello. So now we're going to go to the next function, and the next function is going to be to create a file. And creating a file is important in programming languages because you don't want to read the files, you can want to create files and read into them, and you can kind of create programs based off of reading files, reading into them. In different files, it is going to be, could be a text file, it could be a coding file, which you see. So we're making a file, specifically a Python file. So the indicator is, and we're going to, so we're removing the print function, which that was the original code, and we're adding it to this Python file that we created. So the main code, we're removing that ability. So as of right now, we're not able to print. If I try to print, it would not work. The include function is important because we want this to be open source, so people can, people who are familiar with Python, they can add their code to this program. So we're going to put the include function here, and we're going to include the Python file, which we created, and the file is just a file, and we have to indicate that it's a Python file. And so you actually can use Cherokee. I'm using phonetic because it's easier for me. But like, I think you can get special keyboards that have all of the functions, all of the symbols. So here we're printing CO, which just means hello. And as you see, it's printing even though there is no print function. So this is for open source purposes. If anyone wants to add to this program, they'll be able to add to the program. And so here we are going to begin to look at other functions like the loop parameter takes in a number, and we use the print function to display our loop. So we're looping CO, which means high. We're going to loop that 3 times, and you see it's looped 3 times. And again, loop functions are important programming because once you start making larger applications, you don't want to keep writing out your code over and over again. You want kind of a function to loop something. So this is also just displaying basic arithmetic that's built into the program if need be. And this is just a representation of order of operations. It just shows, again, when the print is being used to display the results of the arithmetic. So now we're going to be creating a file. This time it's going to be a text file. And last time we specified Python that we were for snake. And this time we're just using regular create file function, and that's going to create us a text file, which we are going to read into. And we're going to start using some logic operators as well in this. So we're going to write in our file, we're going to write CO, we're going to write high, and notice also how we include, at least for this example, we include is the base for us to be able to print anything at all. And so here we're saying if CO, which is high, if CO is in the file, which is just file, and we're going to specify that this is a text file that we're moving into. So if I is in the file, then what we want to do is we want to print Guado, which means thank you, and printed Guado, and as you see, the CO is in the text file. And the next thing we're going to do is we're going to add an else function, but if it's not in there. So else, and we're using the suffix, C, and C is just a suffix that kind of makes it okay. This is like kind of like else, we're going to do something different. That kind of goes back to the use of suffixes. And so we're going to delete CO, and we're putting, this is not well, so, or not good, so, not good, we don't have CO. Now we go back, and so we get thank you, well, and that is the use of the if function in this program. So, applications, cultural significance, and educational benefits. Essentially, this program, like I said, would be used as an educational program to teach children. STEM is being promoted, has been promoted in the U.S. Heavily in the past decade, 2 decades or so. And so, at least on tribal lands, we could be doing a better job, not just with STEM, but also language revitalization efforts. And since Cherokee is the largest, Cherokee does have the largest population within tribal communities, and they also have their written system, it would be a good place to start creating programs that teach kids basic computational thinking, as well as, at the same time, they're also learning this language that thankfully has been saved due to a written system created. And I'm going to Q&A. Basically, essentially, you're coding with a different language, and this language is not used. Most people speak Cherokee, but when it comes to actually reading Cherokee, And so, you know, in websites and books, there are efforts all across the board where they're trying to bring their literacy rates up, literacy for Cherokee, and trying to bring their literacy rates up because this was kind of something that was underlooked, kind of, due to the obvious and unfortunate history of Indigenous communities here in the U.S. But this program, yes, is essentially just coding a different language, a different language.
So is it per se for the purpose of creating a Cherokee website, for lack of better words, or is it for having the option to change the language on the website to Cherokee or both?
Well, for this program, it's mostly it's like I said, educational. So mostly it's for children to learn how to code, and at the same time they're also learning. You know, they're using the words that they've learned in the classroom because this is being taught now in Cherokee classroom. They're learning what they're using to learn how to code, and at the same time they're applying. Okay, no, I learned this word in class. You know, I learned well meaning in class, whatever. So now I'm going to use this in the code. But yes, it has the potential, since the purpose is to create applications. Obviously, we need to be more advanced. But yes, you could create a website. You could create a web builder if you wanted to with this program. You can create. You want to make websites, so you can create using. Obviously more functions would need to be added, but yes, there's potential for if one wanted to make websites later.
I have a question. What has the reception been like from the 5 more Indigenous community to this project, like educators and leaders and such?
So, I haven't been in contact. I know Professor Drowning Bear has, but unfortunately, this research was kind of on pause since he left, and I haven't been able to get back into contact with him because my only contact was his university email. So I do know that he was in contact with the tribal government, and but unfortunately that happened. You know, if there was any way I could, get in contact with him again, I would of course try to pursue this research to fruition.
So, thank you very much. This was very interesting. I think you started answering some of the questions that I had with this last slide in the sense of, and also your question to what can this be used for, and you're showing this with the Python coding. My 2 questions for you are, one, what do you think would be future directions if you were to get in touch again with the professor that you've worked with, or just in general, what are some future directions that you'd like to see for this project? But also, you've given us examples out of Cherokee, it's the other language and the unified yes. So there's those 2 examples of using this syllabary with Python. Are there any languages, not necessarily Indigenous languages of the Americas, but is there any other syllabary usage with Python, or are these the first 2 languages that have really that have used that type of language with Python?
Yes. So to answer your first question, the first thing that I would do is try to get this officially as in the form of application. So what you saw was called an IDE, to the Integrated Development Environment, and it was like online. So obviously, if we want an application to be used by students, we're going to want like a desktop application, a computer application. So this would have to be migrated to another platform. I mean, it's still Python, but another platform in which we can create this as an actual application to where, okay, you know, whatever, I would go on to website, maybe this will be on the Cherokee Education website. You'll be able to click a link that downloads an application, and you'll be able to run all of this on an application that's available on the desktop. And you know, obviously you saw the videos using Terminal, and so that would be the case. You would have an actual user interface UI, and that would also be there to help users understand what they're looking at, essentially. And so that, you know, so once that is completed, then, you know, you have your, I guess, beta alpha version. So you have a finished version. Hopefully, these would be, the idea is that these would be kind of used as an educational application, and schools would be able to download these, put them on computers, and, you know, you just teach kids, hey, you know, we're learning all these words in class, and let's use them, and at the same time teach you how to code, teach you some basics of coding. STEM is a field that is continuously growing, and there is infinite possibilities for what people can do with STEM. And to answer your second question, with Python, I don't know if I don't believe, I know for a fact for Cherokee, this is the first. For any other syllabaries, I'm not sure. I think maybe some more older and more established languages, maybe like C, C++, or C#, maybe some of those might have been translated. I have seen some examples with some like Java. I think I've seen some examples with those with different alphabet systems. I'm not sure if it was syllabaries. I've seen Arabic. I want to say Ethiopic. I can't remember if I'm just making that up, but maybe Ethiopic as well. I'm sure that there has been some languages translated into these languages, but this is definitely an area that's under focus.
Well, exactly. It goes to show you that if there is any other examples, it's a very short list.
Yes.
So it speaks to the contribution. So we have time for this or any other questions? I think that's, thank you for sharing this with us.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
I appreciated your, what you mentioned to us. The word that was used to refer to the program was serpent, was the word for serpent instead of, so that's part of the work, is to figure out what is more.
What is the best? Yeah, that was honestly, that was, I like coding, but that was more fun to me. And this research was like finding the right words. If you didn't have, with Cherokee, you had a lot of literal translations, but sometimes you didn't. So it was really interesting trying to
Yes,
find, what would make the most sense when translating.
but that also helps establish the connection of the students, the children